Okay, here's the state of play after the first conference in the tournament scenario, conference number 6. Again, I'm playing Winston Churchill this time. And round 1, conference 1 to Winston, I think. Let's take a look at the fronts for a start. The only front to advance was the Mediterranean front, which is very pleasing to Winston and his cabinet. And nothing else was able to sort of gain ground in the European or Pacific theatre other than in the Italian peninsula. Looking over at the conference table, significantly Churchill won a global issue and he won the agenda segment on the tiebreaker, becoming inactive to score that victory. Points wise, we are looking at a early lead by Churchill on 17, and both Roosevelt and Stalin are back on 7. And so that's the key play in the first conference. A little bit of movement in terms of the spy networks around the globe, but all in all a good first round for me as Winston. Okay, be back shortly with conference 2. Here's a quick look at the card draws for the 3 different factions starting at the beginning of the second conference. Thought I'd just show them to you prior to doing the conference and giving you the end of conference situation. And Roosevelt has drawn 15 strength total. Stalin has a very impressive 15, 18, 20, 23. So quite a big margin over Roosevelt. And I've drawn 16, counting as the Chief of Imperial Staff card as a 1 at this stage. So just in the card draws for this conference, counting the raw numbers, Stalin has got quite an advantage. So we'll see in a second how this round ends up. Okay, so this is the situation after the second conference in the scenario, conference number 7. And despite Stalin's excellent starting hand, I have came out ahead, I think, in this conference quite comfortably. And in the agenda segment, I have won my second agenda. And taking a look at the table, the global issues haven't changed. I've still got the colonialism one there in my favour. Over on the military display, taking a look at the Pacific, not much movement there, not much progress at all, except down in the Southwest Pacific. The Allies have made a slight advance there. Moving up to the Western Theatre. Okay, we've landed in Normandy, so there's some movement there. After the second front was won, or left in the centre of the table, and northern Italy has been cleaned up by the Allies, and the Eastern Front hasn't moved. You can see here also that I'm dominating as Churchill the political and clandestine area. I won 2 strong pole mill issues this turn, and that's been reflected here. But having said that, things seem to be going well, but when you actually look at where the points are at the moment, and I am scoring this game as we go, just to get a bit of a handle of where I'm at in this learning phase. I think later on I won't score as I go, but yeah, you can see there that myself, I'm at 36 points compared to Stalin's 10 and Roosevelt's 7. So I'm actually not doing that good in terms of setting myself up for a victory, even though it's still quite early in this tournament scenario. I need to balance things out a little bit and ease back. So otherwise I'm going to find myself penalised when it comes to the victory conditions. I'm going for a access surrender here in the spirit of the game. I'm certainly not going to go charging ahead avoiding an access surrender. so I'm going to have to balance this out and probably help my allies here a little bit, close that victory point gap somewhat. So that's the state of the play after the second conference, and we'll be back with the next one shortly. Thanks. Just before we start Conference A, let's just take a look at the card draw. And the Americans have drawn a stellar hand there with 15, 19, 23, 25, 26 points and a possible increase with George C. Marshall. Stalin has 9, 13, 16, 18, 19, 20 with a possible increase. And myself, I'm on 9, 13, 16, 19, 22 points there. So pretty even spread, I think, in terms of the raw strengths of the cards. Moving over to the map again, just a point of note, in my victory condition calculation last time, I managed to clean out all the American clandestine networks in the colony, so technically speaking each of those is worth 2 victory points for the UK if it was to stay like that at the victory point condition. So my 36 is technically 46, which makes it even more stronger position, yet more dangerous position for me. So tactics wise this turn, I think I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to try and get these offences in the Pacific going, get the Yanks rolling down here, give some support hopefully maybe to the Middle East, not the Middle East, sorry, the Eastern Front, to give them a bit of a shot at getting into Germany at the same time as us. And I'm going to try and avoid giving either Stalin or Roosevelt too much in the way of clandestine or political networks. I'm going to just try and keep my grip on that, but advance the Pacific and the Eastern fronts. That's my plan at the moment, but as we all know, the best laid plans. Okay, back soon. This is the situation at the end of the second conference, which is the 8th conference in this scenario, and taking a look at what happened in the agenda segment. Roosevelt won that, and which I was quite okay with, to give him a few points. Stalin won the A-bomb research. We didn't have any pole mill on the table, which I think was a good thing for me. It was pretty much directed offences and production that were debated over, and I didn't push too hard on that, just to try and balance things up. So most of the action happened on the fronts, and unfortunately there was no movement on the Pacific fronts at all. Just failed to get any momentum going, so not a good thing in regards to getting Japan surrendered. And although we made progress on both the Western and Eastern fronts, we probably needed a breakthrough, and we just had an unlucky die roll with the Eastern front. I think we could have got a breakthrough there. So we're 2 conferences away from ending the game, and getting into Germany is looking a bit remote unless we get that breakthrough. So maybe we're looking at another game where we don't get an Axis surrender. So that's the situation. Nothing much has changed in regards to the political alignment situation. No minor changes there. And so I'm faced with another conference where I have to close that points gap. I'm still too far ahead, I think. Then again, if I don't get an Axis surrender, I'm in a winning position. But hey, I'm Churchill. I need Germany and Japan to be defeated, so we'll see if we can get a breakthrough somewhere. Thanks. Okay, I've reset the game for conference number 9, and here's the starting hand for the Americans. They've got a raw strength of 9, 12, 15, 17, 19, with a possible increase with George C. Marshall. The Soviets are on 14, 17, 19, 22, and Churchill, myself, I'm on 15, 19, 22, 25, 26 at a time when I want to give my allies an advantage to close that gap. I've got a strong hand. Not quite sure how I'm going to play this one. Let's take a look at the particular conference we're going to be at. It's Yalta, Argonaut. So first up for the UK, the Burma Road reopens. I must use one production to place an offensive marker in the CBI theatre, no problem. Although I'd like to actually use my production elsewhere to help the effort in Germany on the Eastern Front, and probably would have liked to attribute that to one of these two theatres here, which have much more chance of getting into Japan. Okay, the Manhattan Project spying. The Soviets are spying again. Place the A-bomb research on conference table on the Soviet track equal to 1d6. Okay, let's roll Mr. Stalin's dice. 2. Okay, there is some spying going on. Okay, next one. Roosevelt dies. Replace him with Truman if this has not yet occurred. Well, it hasn't, and I will do that very shortly. Iwo Jima. Place one Japanese reserve in the Central Pacific Theatre. We don't have any Japanese reserve, naval reserves. I presume that is. Actually, that may be... no, that might be normal reserves. Sorry, that's going to be into there. And partisan dispute. Roll 1d6 on the 1 to 3. On a 1 to 3, roll that number of times on the pole mill table. No effect. Okay, so that's the conference we're working on this time. So, just to reiterate, I'm trying to reduce my lead because I still want to force an Axis surrender if possible. There are 2 conferences left, the 9th one which we're on and the 10th one, and we need a breakthrough basically, because we're not going to get there without a breakthrough somewhere. So all my efforts will be going into helping my allies. Okay, I'll be back shortly with results of this conference. Okay, we've just had the agenda segment, and very quickly I won the agenda segment, and I've placed Pacific leadership in the centre of the table. I've placed the strategic materials, and USSR declares war on Japan. My thinking was if I can try and win this leadership one, I can get some resources that I can allocate to particular fronts. I could even, this one here, I'll try and keep this in the centre, strategic materials, so everyone gets some resources to play with, but I'm happy to win it, to allocate my resources to others. And I'm thinking I might just try and get the Soviets into that Far East theatre, who knows, just to see if I can do something there. So my aim this segment here will be to keep a couple of those issues in the centre of the table, I think. Okay, it's the end of the meeting segment in the final conference. That's the Potsdam Terminal Conference. And let's look at who's won the various issues. So, starting with Stalin, he's picked up the A-bomb research and, surprisingly, the global issue. The US have picked up Pacific leadership in the theatre issue and production, UK production. And I've picked up US production and European theatre leadership. And remaining at the centre of the table are strategic materials and USSR declares war on Japan. So I was going for the other Pacific theatre leadership as well, but all in all I'm reasonably happy with that, and it goes to a tie break. So starting with Stalin, he happens to be inactive because he used himself in the debate to get A-bomb research. Moving to the left, Truman grabs the tiebreaker with the arsenal of democracy. So the US win that segment. So can I translate those issues to a win over on the rest of the board? Back shortly. Okay, it's the end of the second to last conference, the 9th conference, and this is the state of play. Despite my best efforts, I'm still winning by too handy a margin. Currently I'm on 55 points compared to the US and the USSR, who are 19 and 15. So I'm way ahead, and partly for a couple of reasons, because I'm also factoring the 2 points you get for each of these colonies that the UK get if they remain unoccupied. And I'm going to make a slight adjustment here. These two political alignment markers have to come off because I was ineligible to replace them early on, because the global issue track was in the neutral position between the UK and the USSR, where I can't place political alignment markers on the Western or Eastern Front. So that takes my score down by a grand total of 4, which is still not really affecting much at all. So I'm too far ahead because I still want to get that Axis surrender. So in terms of the fronts, the Western Front made a breakthrough and are now knocking on the door of Germany, which is good news. The Eastern Front, throughout all the games I've played of Churchill so far, in the random allocation of armies to the fronts, they've all gone to the Eastern Front to really hold that up and slow it down. But a surrender is looking possible there. Not so bright on the Pacific, in the Far East. Slow progress here for the Americans. Nothing happening in the CPI, and in Manchuria failed to advance, which is disappointing because I managed to get that USSR declares war on Japan issue on the table. Now I'm going to have to get it back on the table again. So my tactics for this turn are to get that USSR declares war on Japan table issue on the table, so that I can get into Manchuria and meet the Emperor surrender conditions, which is I'd have to get a advance into Germany. I would have to secondly get the A-bomb into the Trinity space, so I need to get that issue on the table. And thirdly, the Soviet Far East have to get into Manchuria or pass it. So my focus this turn will be to get the A-bomb issue on the table, the USSR issue onto the table, the one that declares war on Japan, and then put my efforts into finishing off the attack on the Western Front, supporting Manchuria, and maybe putting some production into the A-bomb die roll if I get it onto the table. Let's see if I can get that issue or those issues onto the table as we head into the last conference. And let's take a look at that conference card now while we're here. It's going to be conference number 10, and we are looking at, let me focus this thing here. Okay, Potsdam Terminal. Churchill wins the election, placed the global issue on the conference table. Okay. Manchuria placed the USSR directed offensive in the Far Eastern Theatre. Okay. Roosevelt's already dead. Okinawa, no issue there. And just a roll on the Pall Mall table. So nothing that's going to drastically interfere with the plans that I have. Let's see if I can get a Axis surrender. Okay, I thought I'd step through some of the decision segment, the post-conference implementation of the issues. And just as a reminder, looking at the situation in the fronts, for me, or for the Allies to get an Axis victory, we need the Germans to surrender. So that means we need to get the Western Front into Germany, or the Eastern Front having a breakthrough, which would be pretty tough, I imagine. And we need the Americans to get into Trinity on the A-bomb track, and we need the Russians to get into Manchuria, so that we meet the conditions for a Japanese surrender. So those are three things we need to happen for this Axis surrender of both Axis forces. So here we go, looking at the issues. And first up, the good news is we've got the USSR declares war on Japan issue in the centre of the table, so we can have a crack at Manchuria. And strategic materials, so I'm going to quickly allocate those to the various countries. So we brought a few more resources for what we need to do here. Okay, first up is the A-bomb research, and that was won by Stalin, so he's going to be going up there no matter what, grabbing another 3 points on the track up there. And we need a roll of 4 to 6 for the Americans to get Trinity. which is a prerequisite for the Emperor's surrender. So this needs to happen. So without much ado, the US are going to put in 1 production, and I'm going to put in 2 production that is going to guarantee Trinity. That's 3, and we're going to have 1 on the roll, so that's 4. So the A-bomb has reached Trinity, which is one of the prerequisites. Okay, so that's A-bomb research. Next step, we're looking at global issue, won by the Soviets. So they're going to be moving this neutral one into the spheres of influence. It shouldn't have any effect on the game at the moment because none of us have any pole mill to allocate, but the Russians do get 5 points for that. Okay, placing of directed offences. There are none that were on the table, but there was 1 placed via the conference card in Manchuria. Okay, so now it's on to allocation of production, I think we're up to. And starting with Stalin. So he has his mandatory 2 to put into Manchuria, so we'll throw 2 offensive support into Manchuria to take care of that directed offensive. So he's fulfilled that conference card 1. I don't think there are any other conference card requirements there. And going on the AI for Stalin, he will put the rest of his production, which is 2, into the Eastern Theatre, on the Eastern Front, sorry. And we'll throw 2 into there. Let's see if we can get into East Germany, or maybe into Germany with a breakthrough, which would be very tough, I think. Okay, moving on to the Americans. On that note, the Americans won UK production and I won US production, so they essentially cancel each other out. And okay, so US allocation, they place 4 in the Western Theatre straight away on the drive to Germany. Okay, 4 there, and they have a remaining 2 which will go into the Central Pacific and Southwest Pacific, so we'll put 1 in each. Okay, and it's that's the American production. And finally, my production, I have 3 left. Okay, so what needs to happen here is we need to get Germany surrendering, and we need to get into Manchuria with the Russians. So I need to put my support into those 2 regions. So straight away I'm going to, because the German army, the Russians are going to be facing 2 Japanese armies straight away. I'm going to be placing 1, 2 offensive straight into Manchuria. I'm tempted to place another one, or do I put it into the Western Theatre? Interesting. There'll be some production from Theatre Command coming, but not much. I'm going to place it into the last one into Manchuria. I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing here. Here we go. Maybe that should have gone on the Western Theatre. Okay. Right, just on Theatre Command. I have 1 European Theatre Command, and the Americans have 1 Pacific Theatre Command. So effectively we both get 1 offensive support or naval marker, which we both don't need at the moment, to place in that theatre, and an additional 2 each for winning the theatre issues. So we both get a bonus of 3 offensive support, which is critical, I think. Okay, so starting with the Americans will be placing their theatre command, I'm sure, in the Central Pacific, and 2 in there, and alternating, and 1 in the, sorry, 2 in the, yeah, 1 in the Southwest Pacific. So there goes their 3, and my 3 will be supporting the Western Front, 2 into the Western Front, and yeah, I think 3 into the Western Front. So that's theatre command, and there won't be any change of command at this late stage of the game, I don't think. Okay, so I'll be back in a moment. I'll just place the Axis forces and we see how this wraps up. Okay, so this is what the forces are facing at the moment. In the Central Pacific Theatre, we've got 3 offensive support markers against 2 armies. So that's 4 points. So that basically removes 2 offensive support markers. So it goes back into there. Down in the Southwest Pacific, we've got 2 offensive support markers. That's no defenders there at the moment. In Manchuria, we have 4 points of Japanese reserves, so we'll take out 2 offensive support markers there. Move those back there for the time being. Nothing faces us on the CBI theatre. In the European theatre, okay, so the Eastern Front is looking a bit weak, so take out 2 there, and that reduces that down to 1 offensive support. And in the critical Western Front, we have 2, 4, 6, 8 points worth of German reserves, so we have to remove 2, 4, 6, 8 points of offensive support, and that leaves us with 3 offensive support markers there. Okay, and that's the situation. Let's move into the war phase, because there's no political markers to place down at all. So grabbing our 10-sided dice, let's start in the non-critical CBI. We'll roll 1 and we advance there, requiring 2. Okay, here we go. Into the Central Pacific, we have 2, 4. We require 4 or less to advance. We have the naval support to go into the naval area. Here we go, 4 or less, and we get another 1. So we advance there as well. Okay, down in the Southwest Pacific, we have 2, 4, 6 points of offensive. So we require 6 or less, and we advance there as well, which prevents the UK and the USSR from getting their 3 victory points. MacArthur has returned. Okay, success in the Pacific at last. Okay, in the critical Far East Theatre, can the USSR get into Manchuria? Okay, here we go. We have, sorry, I took those back a second ago. They're supposed to be there. The 2 Japanese armies are supposed to be there. I was jumping the gun. We require, oops. Okay, sorted that out. Bit of a mind blank. Okay, so we've got 2, 4, 6, 8 offensive support. So we're requiring 8 or less. This is critical. We need this. And we get a 10. Okay. So we're not going to get into the surrender. Frustrating. Okay, moving into the Eastern Theatre. Okay, the Russians have 2, 4 points of support. We need 4 or less. 3, and they make it. The 1 we needed didn't go. And finally, the Western Theatre, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8. We require 8 or less to get Germany surrender. And we get a 9. We can't do it. Back to the drawing board. Okay, so that's the advances on the front. Myself and my comrades could not get Japan or Germany to surrender. Okay, disappointing. I'm going to have to now go to the condition 3 victory phase, so I'm going to count up our victory points now and see where it's at. Score at the end with this condition 3 victory. So prior to our die roll modifier, I'm on 52, Roosevelt is on 24, and Stalin is on 29. So I was not able to bring the other two back into the game. So on this basis, Roosevelt is the lowest, so he rolls a die and he adds this die score to his value. So here we go, Mr. Roosevelt, and he gets 5, so he goes from 24 to 29. Stalin at number 2, he subtracts half the die roll, rounded up. 5, 6, so he subtracts 3 from his score. 1, 2, 3, 26. And Churchill, I subtract the die roll. 5 from my score. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 47. So, presuming I've got the scoring right and I haven't made too many blunders in the game, maybe I have, I've ended up with 47 to the 29 of the US and 26 of the Soviets. Okay, that's a surprisingly strong condition 3 victory. I hope I haven't made too many blunders to get that. I think the bulk of the scoring came from my political networks and keeping out the Russians and the Americans in the colonies, which gave me 2 each there as well, combined with my agenda wins is where it came from. But it's a hollow victory for me because I wanted a victory with an Axis surrender. So on to the next game to try and manage that. Thoroughly enjoyed this game. Mistake or no mistakes, it's a real real winner for me, and can't wait to set it up and play again, and maybe just refine my strategy and just double check I haven't made too many mistakes that may have affected the score. So I'm going to leave this tournament scenario with a quick quote from the dust jacket of the book, Yalta, The Price of Peace by S.M. Ploquet. And yes, I think it's just timely to reflect on this story that this board game tells. Yalta tells the story of the 8 extraordinary days when the fate of the world was decided by 3 of the towering figures of the 20th century. The big 3 used every tool in their arsenals. Alliances shifted as they partitioned Germany, approved the most aggressive aerial bombing campaign in history, redrew the borders of Eastern Europe, and created a new organisation to settle future disputes. 2 months later, Stalin was strengthening his grip on Eastern Europe, Roosevelt was dead, and Churchill was on the cusp of a humiliating electoral defeat. Okay, thanks guys, I hope you enjoyed this session report.